Hello there, Ray here, and in today's video we'll be looking at 30 small but important updates that were added into 1.18. This is a continuation of my previous video where I cover all the major updates, and I will be using my knowledge of playing this game for over 12 years to give you guys some insight for these new changes. There's a lot to go over, so leave a like and let's get started. Conduit can now be easily mined up using a pickaxe, meaning that the large majority of blocks now have a special tool to mine. So now there's only these items left in the game that you cannot break with any special tool, and you're perfectly fine to use your hand. And yes, you can mine a dragon egg with just your hand if you place it underneath of some deep water with no caves nearby. Right-clicking with shears on kelp, as well as twisting, weeping, and cave vines will prevent them from ever growing longer. This does use up durability on the shears, but it allows you to get the decor in your builds exactly how you want and keep them permanently that way. Unfortunately, this still does not work on other vegetation, so we're still left using some string in some places. You get more raw copper in 1.18 from an average of 2.5 to 3.5, and with fortune you almost get an average of 8 per block. And if you're mega lucky, a single ore block that is mined with fortune 3 can produce as many as 20 raw copper. One copper block can be converted into 4 times as many cut variants. So if you're lucky, a single copper ore can be converted over into as many as 16 slabs. Evokers, pillagers, vindicators, illusioners, and ravengers no longer attack baby villagers. This makes it like Bedrock Edition, and also allows villages to regrow after being completely wiped out by having a raid come through or a pillager patrol. Now all fish as well as squids and dolphins only spawn between Y levels 50 and 64. Low squids now only spawn below Y level 30. Axolotls can now only spawn inside of lush caves with clay blocks underneath of their water, but tropical fish can also spawn in lush caves at any Y level. Make sure you're subscribed so don't miss out on the future video where I'm going to be showing you how to farm up these water mobs easily in 1.18. And while you're at it, join our notification gang so you don't miss out on the future streams which I do every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Horse variations will follow the player with gold apples or carrots, and llamas will follow if you're holding a hay bale, which is great for getting your horse across these massive rivers which are now in 1.18, and they're even part of these fjords. 1.18 mobs that typically took a light level of 7 now need a light level of 0 in order to spawn, but this does not affect the majority of mob farms, so you no longer have to be afraid while traversing inside of these dark forests, as it's too bright for mobs to spawn in here now, but they can still spawn on the surface at night. Enchanting tables now put off a light level of 7. This makes it just like the Bedrock Edition and also prevents mobs from spawning near it. Geodes can no longer be found near the surface because they now spawn below Y level 30. So finding them while flying over top of a deep ocean is much harder. Buried treasure can now be found with having potions of water breathing inside of them, just like Bedrock Edition. This is great if you want to continue doing some underwater raiding. You're able to find more monster dungeons underneath of Y level 0, making double dungeons more common. All fossils that you find below Y level 0 will have deep slate diamonds in them rather than coal, and they can be found in all different types of terrain of deserts as well as swamps. The random water lakes have been removed that you often would see inside of plains. These have been replaced with local aquifers which have their own water table levels that can be different from rivers and oceans nearby. I don't think anybody will miss falling in those annoying water holes. The opposite applies to the bottom of the world, where you only find lava aquifers as well as lakes, but you won't find any of these small lava pools down there. So speedrunners can still find these and easily use them to make nether portals. Stony shores will now have these really large gravel strips going across them. Great for collecting tons of gravel, which you can use to easily make concrete. The Adventure Time advancement now needs 50 different biomes in order to complete, instead of just needing 42. That is because the 8 new biomes that were added in are now also needed in order to get it. Even if you collect all the different biomes in 1.17, when you upgrade to 1.18, you will need to collect 19 more. Speaking of biomes, they also removed all these different types of hill, mountain, as well as modified variations of biomes. But you can still find those same type of terrain in your world. They're just going to be called the default biomes. Like jungle hills are now going to be called jungle. Terrain uniqueness is determined by some new stats which you can see in the debug screen. There's multi-noise, which consists of continentalness, which goes up as you go more inland. The lower values are going to be ocean, and that's what the C stands for. E is for erosion, which determines how flat or mountainous it's going to be, with higher values being flat and lower values being more mountain. T is for temperature and humidity, which don't have any impact on the terrain, but does decide on which type of biome will be placed. W is for weirdness, which indirectly determines the peaks and valleys, and the randomness that determines the biome variant. There's also Biome Builder, which tells you stuff like peaks and valleys, how far you are from oceans, erosion, temperature, as well as humidity. There's also Terrain, which goes into more detail about on how it's overall going to look. They also renamed a lot of different biomes from 1.17 to 1.18. So all the big taiga forests as well as birch ones are now called Old Growth, tundras are called Plains, Jungle Edge is called Sparse Jungle, and all the different biomes that had the word mountains in them are now called Windswept, so they're not confused with the new mountain biomes. Before, sleeping in bed would prevent any type of weather from occurring in the next 10 minutes. Now it only will erase weather if you sleep while there is weather actually going on. That means even if you sleep every single night, you can still get thunderstorms to occur, where it's then possible for hostile mobs to spawn on the surface and attack you. When chunks are rendering around the player, it's going to render them as a cylinder rather than a square. This doesn't have any effect on the overall loaded chunks. In 1.17, you typically spawn near 0, but in 1.18, you can actually spawn extremely far away. Here we have a spawn spot where you spawn out 1,500 blocks away from the center of the world. Dylan DC found this crazy world, and he has many more on his channel. This change was made to prevent players from being placed in inconvenient locations like in the middle of the ocean. This could mean some new seeds that have strongholds that are directly underneath the spawn. And I know Dylan's excited to find those for the speedrunning community. Sprinting while barely touching the wall will no longer stop you. But it won't be so annoying when using these sprinting ice paths. There is no longer the option to make worlds that are just caves or floating islands. So if you want these crazy worlds, you'll have to first make them in 1.17, then upgrade them to 1.18. But be prepared to put in your own bridges. But Amplify did get updated to using the new heights, so the terrain there can get as high as 320 Y level. Drowns now naturally spawn inside of warm oceans, and they also ignore the light level of 0 rule the other general hostile mobs have to follow. And in case you're wondering, there's no such thing as a deep warm ocean. You can now use splash water balls in order to kill Endermen for their XP, and I made this really cool Enderman farm using that. In 1.18, you can no longer instantly mine azalea flowering leaves instantly with an axe. So make sure to keep your Silk Touch hoe handy. All 6 of the new mountain biomes and all the windswept biomes except for the savanna can generate with emeralds as well as infested blocks, including at the bottom of the world, the infested deep slate. But if you are using a Silk Touch pick, you can mine them up and convert them into normal deep slate. But if you're using Fortune, beware, they will produce silverfish. With the new taller terrain, mine shafts in Badlands could also generate much higher. By cranking down your sim distance and cranking up your render distance, you can search for structures around your world really far out without having to move. This lets you see further without having as much strain on your computer. This can only be done in single player, as render distance on servers is handled on their side. 6 years ago, I showed something which I called void bases, and it sparked an insane interest in the Minecraft community, not only in faction servers, but also among normal survival players. Let's take a look at what happens when you update your void bases to the new deeper world. So we're here at 1.17, we got our Ender Crystal, Shulker, as well as Pig here in the void. Now we're 1.18, and you can see that there's a lot more blocks underneath, but our void little bases are still stuck exactly where they were. If there was no blocks at this Y level here, Y level 0, then the game didn't place any blocks underneath, so this guy here didn't get like suffocated. But here where I placed in a fence at the actual Y level 0, it placed in blocks underneath. Over here I had some bedrock on top, and that all got converted as well as blocks got placed underneath, so these entities are stuck inside. The actual shulker that was holding these up was inside of a block, so he decided to teleport, and he ended up over here. In the past you could use ender crystals to hold boats up, but that no longer works, but the ender crystal is also inside the blocks. I covered all the different scenarios on how bedrock is converted and blocks are placed underneath in this video here. In the main menu here, if you go to options and then go to online, you can actually change it so people cannot see you if you hop into a server. So hovering over a server won't actually show your name. They also came in and optimized entity collision, where the game has to try to determine what mob is inside of which one, how far they are near the center, and therefore how much they should push each other. They also updated it so that now Minecraft will run on the newest Java version, which is version 17. And in 1.18, the game will automatically save chunks when it has time, rather than saving it just when you pause the game or when an autosave occurs. But it seems this weird piston entanglement bug that I found is still in the game. Out of all the different versions in the game of Minecraft throughout all the years, 1.18 is the only one to start with having experimental snapshots, which they had 7 of, and they were before they even came out with the normal snapshots. So it went experimental snapshots, then pre-releases, then release candidates, and then full release. With the Caves and Cliffs update being split into 2 different versions, it's the first time this happened since 2011. 1.18 is also the first major update to not have 2 snapshot versions made in 1 week. And it's also the first major update not to have a single new block added into the game since version 1.1. 1.18 also had the most release candidates, meaning that they thought 1.18 was ready to be released, but then they decided to fix some more problems, with a total of 4 of them. Now, although we did get the 14th disc in 1.18, in this video put on by Minecraft, they flashed something on the screen for just a split second. And one of my viewers, Babazori, seen this, and on my Discord they actually figured out what it was deciphered into, where it says new narrative disc coming ? So maybe we can look forward to 1.19 having a disc that you can record your own audio onto. Now check out this playlist to see crazy tricks I discovered while playing this game for over 12 years. Or check out this playlist to see how I designed a farm for every item in the game of Minecraft. We reached 60 million total views here on YouTube. Thanks guys so much for all the support. I try really hard to keep all 800 plus of my videos up to date, so don't be afraid to check out some of the older ones. I would like to thank all you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!